everyone. Welcome back to Light Talk with Dana. This is a podcast for anyone with any experiences in the paranormal. I welcome you all to connect with me by emailing lighttalk423@gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. Well, we have a wonderful guest today, and I'm so happy that she's here. Thank you so much for being here. But I'm going to let her introduce herself and we'll get going. Go ahead and take over.
Awesome. Probably like most of your folks that are in more of the energetic paranormal world, it feels like we wear amazing amount of hats. But if I could synthesize it down, I think the two main hats that I wear are both being a kind of soul essence spiritual therapist and also a life coach as well. So my name is Xandra, and I work in Boulder and live in the lovely city of Berthoud, Colorado. And I've spent the last, 10, 12 years between becoming a therapist and also doing the life coaching and things like that. And a lot of that has grown out of a vast array of studying with lots of different teachers around the world, but learning everything from energy healing to earth-based healings to psychic mediumship work. That's what I used to do often. So some people will know me by that, but I've been transitioning that out a little bit more and more as I'm sort of weaving and doing more psychotherapy and spiritual coaching work. And sometimes I have folks ask me sort of where that transition's happening. And I think part of it has to do with, and maybe you feel this too, but I like teaching people how to fish. A lot of people will come back to me and ask me for answers. And I'm like, oh, girl, I just want to teach you how to fish. I want to teach you how to do all the things. So my work centers on that of helping people come back to their soul essence, helping them like reclaim and remember who they are and remember those abilities rather than thinking they're like put on a pedestal for just certain people to have. So that's probably the most synthesized interview biography I can give you at the moment.
And that is perfectly okay. That is perfectly okay. That's great. I mean, you have done so much and it's so wonderful. I'm working on being a medium and
Mhm.
actually a channel. So someday I'll get
Mm.
there. So we'll see what happens. So
Mhm.
yeah, so go ahead and let us know about some of the things you've experienced.
Oh man. Well, I think it's like where to start. I think in my current reality, a lot of what I experience now that's in the non-traditional, non-linear, more wooey paranormal space, it's become kind of a home. Maybe you have this too, like when you have enough experience in sort of the paranormal world and they feel like good experiences, they become like these sweet moments of just like, oh, yeah, just kind of a reconfirmation of like, oh, this is beautiful, or like, what is this? It didn't always start that way. So a lot of my paranormal spiritual experiences as a kid were a little bit more on the scary side. And it's because I wasn't trained growing up to necessarily know where my sensitivity could choose to tap into. And so much of my sensitivity or ability to tap into paranormal experiences were so based on emotion. And as a kid, I really struggled with anxiety and perfectionism. And so what I found is that a lot of my paranormal experiences were tapping into like lower frequency spirits or spirits that were struggling with the same emotional difficulty. So I grew up in a very like wooey house where you could hear footsteps. Like even my mom and my parents, who didn't start off necessarily like super into the woo, would have these wooey experiences where the TV would just get turned off. Or even to this day, I think a couple years ago, my mom called me and she was like, "You won't believe this. I've been home alone all day, and I went downstairs in the basement, and all of the laundry was just pulled out of the dryer onto the floor." And she was like, "Who does that?" She's like, "Really? Like my clean laundry onto the floor? Like how rude is that?" And so I
All
think our
right.
house is on some like silly land. I won't say silly land. I think that's probably a very nice way of putting it. I think we have a home on land where like a lot of difficult things happen. So I've had to do a lot of land work around like crossing people over and things like that. I can give you some specific experiences like when I was younger and also like how it's changed as I've gotten older and like what I tap into. Or depending on like what experiences, I can give you more of the like the brilliant, the beautiful kind of things. There's some people, sometimes I'm on ghost podcasts and they're like, tell me your scariest ghost story. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we can go for that too. A
A little bit of each,
little bit of
give us
each.
some, you know, it'll
Hmm.
kind of give the differences of what could happen and what
Hmm.
is awesome, so
Yeah.
you got to be aware of both sides of this realm, because you got to
Hmm.
be cautious, but yet it could be so beautiful. So
Yeah.
yeah, a little of each.
Yeah, there's I wish I knew his name. I recently watched a video of a man that talks about the word entity in a way of how it relates to thought form. Because a lot of times people think of ghost or entity, meaning that
Mhm.
it's like an evil spirit, right? Or there's an angry thing outside of you. But he talks about entities being thought forms that you actually give power to and become programming in the body. And so I kind of take like a moderate route in between that around a lot of my experiences when I was younger were fed by kind of the fear that a contact moment with like an entity or a ghost would feed, and then it would turn into its own siphoning, and then I would draw those experiences towards myself. And so I
Mhm.
often would walk into houses and be like, oh gosh, like I can feel something staring at me. Or like I could not walk up my basement steps as a kid without like every couple steps turning around and staring because I could just feel or sense that kind of energy of staring. And I've always been like a big feeler, like very, very sensitive. And so I used to see like outlines of things like in the house. I used to kind of like see, even to this day, this might sound really ridiculous, but most people, when they take like psychedelics or psychoactive things, especially like mushrooms and stuff, like the wall will start to breathe or the floors will start to breathe, people will talk about. And when I stare at a wall, it does that naturally. That's just how like my visual reference has a lot of things that other people's don't have. And so as a kid, I used to stare at walls in the dark and they didn't look solid. They looked completely multidimensional and it used to scare me a lot. So I had like this overwhelming sense, but also some of my visual stuff, I was like, is this real? Am I making it up? Like, what does this mean? Right.
Right, right.
And so I think the trickiest experience, and it's the one that I've shared the most like Harry Potter, I guess you could say, was when I was like 14 or 15, and cell phones were already out by that time. And so I was, I think, around like getting into high school area or late middle school, and was very nerdy and loved to read books until like early in the morning. And I was sitting on my bed and I just had like a simple book in my hands and I like set it down on the bed for a second to stretch. All of a sudden, the whole book started vibrating. And it's so funny, like to watch like the ego. My ego was instantly like, oh, there's a cell phone underneath it. Like your cell phone vibrated, the book was underneath it. Like it immediately tries to fill in the space of weirdness, right?
Right, right.
And so I pick up the book and there's nothing there. And I was like, okay, that's a little strange. And so I look over at like my side table and there it is. And so I'm holding the book and I'm kind of like observing it and like kind of, kind of moving it around, like looking at it. And all of a sudden it was like this huge wind in the room sparked. And all of a sudden the pages started moving around like back and
Wow.
forth. And I stared at the book and all of a sudden I lost all control of my body. Like I was sitting up with my legs kind of out on my bed and all of a sudden like my whole
Mhm.
body fell backwards against the pillow and I had no control over my system. And all of a sudden there was this woman, this being that was just like talking to me in my head, like trying to talk to me and trying to tell me things. And I had no control. I was just like frozen in my body, like listening to her talk to me. And years later, I went back into that experience. I did like a past life like regression kind of thing where I went back to that experience because I remember yelling inside my head. But when I came out of it, I was just so scared. I couldn't remember like what I was responding and like what she was saying.
Mhm.
And when I went back as an adult and I was looking at like what was I yelling? Because you on average, right, you would think if a spirit invades your space, right? you would be yelling like, get out, go away,
Right.
right? Like something,
Yeah.
r-
Right.
right? And what I
Right.
realized is I was yelling over and over, I'm not ready, over and over
Ooh.
again. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I knew something deeper, some big spiritual something inside of me knew that there were bigger channelings, bigger things to come. And
Mm.
it scared me so much. And then I started from that contact point. We actually brought a psychic medium in, and she told us there was a woman that had died on the land actually there, and that she knew I could see her. So she was trying to communicate with me. But what I realized is that, like, you know how sometimes bad, like not bad people, but certain people have really bad boundaries around respecting our space, around
Well,
like, respecting our boundaries. Spirits can be
yeah.
the same way, right? And so
Right.
what I realized is this spirit had really bad boundaries. She wasn't trying to hurt me, but what it did, right, as a 14-year-old, is it terrified me that
Right.
like that something could just invade my space without my permission.
Uh-huh.
So, I lived in this house and she continued to like move things around my room. She loved technology and she would fight with me over music. So it's like we could only like the Beatles. We could listen to a whole album on the Beatles without her messing with it. And like doors would slam. I mean, like she just had a really big personality, but it terrified me because it made me feel like I didn't have what I needed. And I know as a spirit, I chose that experience to be a huge catalyst because now, almost at this point, 20 years later, a couple decades down the road, that's the catalyst that pushed me so heavily into spiritual work and like studying with all of these teachers and working with all these things. So it's been a couple decades of kind of like studying and then becoming a professional in it. Took until yeah, that's been about 10 or 12 years. But before that, even, I was already like talking with mediums, going to different conferences, like studying the tarot, like trying to figure out what was going on. So that was probably the biggest catalyst and the scariest moment, not just seeing something, but actually having it take over my space and then having to study a lot of energy healing to try to figure out how to have really strong boundaries as a sensitive, empathic, kind of psychic kid, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big
That
long
would be
story.
pretty scary. That would be. Um, that was kind of like the same kind of instance I had with the ETs. They froze me too, and I couldn't move. And I remember just screaming in my head, call mom. Yeah.
Mm,
And I couldn't move. I could move my wrist, I can move my left hand, the fingers, but I couldn't move my arm. So I
mm.
get that one.
From your experience of it, do you do you have like a perspective of like what the higher meaning is, the higher understanding, like of having that experience is from like a soul level?
I've kind of looked at it that they were protecting me. I've called them my angels
Hmm.
because they were protecting me, I believe, from some gunfires that was going on around my house. I
Wow.
don't know if they were gunfires or not, but
Hmm.
um, I call them my angels. And then when we moved in my current home now, I they did reappear. I mean, I didn't see them; I felt them
Hmm.
3 times, and once I saw a shadow ghost. And when I did a cleansing, the shadow went away and the ETs went away. I haven't seen them since.
Hmm.
So I think they're here to protect me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Sometimes it feels like it's tuning, right? Around like finding the beings that are the high frequency around us to like support us, to guide us. Feels like there's quite the range to choose from when you start kind of like opening your Wi-Fi station or your seventh chakra, right, to those things a little bit. And I feel similar. I don't know if you work with certain like ET groups and things like that, but it feels like a lot more of them are coming in and coming down as people are curious about whether they've had lives off planet, right? Or what kind of civilizations exist and things like that. I'm excited for the next chapter of what people discover. I definitely have my own experiences in that realm. But I'm excited to see as people are opening up more to guides, to angels, things like that, how many folks will get spirits and beings from different civilizations guiding them, helping them remember wisdom they might have had beyond this life, things like that.
Yeah, I'm interested too. I just did my pendulum a couple days ago, and they were saying that those ETs were my star seeds, but I don't know who they
Mm.
are. I don't know if they're grays. I don't know who they are though.
Well, I wonder, you'll have to check out. I don't know if you've heard of Steve Noble before. Have you heard his name?
Steve, no, it sounds familiar.
Steve Noble, or
Sounds.
sometimes he says his name. He has a British accent, Nobel. But he's phenomenal. He's a one of my favorite teachers right now on YouTube. He has hundreds of free videos, but he has an ET different sort of race playlist, so you can play with Pleiadians, Arcturians, Lyrans, Syrians,
Really?
folks from, yeah, Venusians in terms of Venus, like lots of different beings, and doing these magnificent meditations where you bring in sort of four angels of light to hold the space. And then you sort of, some of them is like doing Arcturian healing chambers, things like that. But he's incredible. Again, all of this is free. He has, I think, like 150, 200,000 subscribers because he's just one of those people that wants to get the information out. And the whole channel is about making sure star seeds can come back to who they are. So there's all of these different meditations, but I'd be curious if you tried one of them. Like, okay, let's try the Lyran one. Oh, nope, not from there. Okay, let's try the Venusian one. Ah, no, oh, Pleiadians. Okay, this feels like the right frequency. Be curious to see,
Yeah,
or maybe you have
that would be.
more beings too.
Yeah, that would be. I've been seeing lights in the skies flashing, and
Ah,
my husband's seen them, and I've got video of them now. And
mhm.
but that's about it. It's like a distant star that's flashing, and then you see like little twinklies around it. It was
Mhm.
so I'm thinking it's something like that, like a mothership, then with the little ships around it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still
Is
learning.
is it normally in your home or when you're on vacation or both?
We've been in the mountains and seen them when we were camping, and
Yeah.
that's I think one of the first places we've really seen it.
Okay.
And I've seen it here at the house too.
Okay. I
Mhm.
wonder, we keep saying the same ship, my partner and I. They're like the same, or maybe like a line of them. It's fascinating. It's completely different than Elon's like star, like chain of stars sort of thing. But we've seen, maybe this is a fun story. There was
Okay, go for it.
this
Let's
is a
do
fun story.
it.
So my partner and I, we love, 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 love going to Utah. It's kind of our thing. And so we end up going out to these really remote places in Utah where we, carry everything on our back for days and days. So sometimes we don't run into people. And we're sort of like studying these like kind of ancient pictographs and petroglyphs and things like that we're seeing in these deep canyons that are thousands of years old. And what's fascinating is the last time we were doing that, we drove down this road and found this like little tiny hotel. And we were like, God, should we do it on our last night instead of like backpacking and doing our little tent? We're like dirty, like 3 days of being out and like just the dust storms of like 90-degree weather in Utah. Someone shows you a hotel and you're like, a shower, a soft bed. Should we do it? So we decided to, and the hotel was relatively empty, but we had a little balcony and there was a little kind of like reservoir water area. And so we were watching the sunset with a bunch of people on balconies and things, and was fascinating. As it got dark, we were sitting there just having a really deep conversation, and I closed my eyes and I could hear this frequency. It sounds similar but different to when you hear like electric cars like drive by. It was like this like high pitched kind of like whirring like water sort of sound, and I closed my eyes and I just felt this like beautiful blue underworld. It was almost like I was in blue, and I was like, something's coming, like something's happening. And I looked up into the sky, and all of a sudden there was this light that looked really, really far away. It looked like a crane, how they have like lights on a crane and it's just like a
Uh-huh.
long line and vertical. And I was like, weird, I didn't see that before. And all of a sudden, like the vertical line started like turning slightly. And I was like, oh, weird. Okay, it's not like horizontal, it's not vertical, it's like somewhere in the middle. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I was like, wow, it's getting really big. And I was like, is it coming towards us? And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And we both went quiet. And my partner Nick was like, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And he tried to get his phone out to videotape it. And the crazy part is that the phone couldn't capture it. That was the most gnarly part. His phone could not film it. He was like, I'm looking right at it, but my camera can't see it. He's like, the technology we have can't see it. And what was crazy is it flew over our hotel. It was huge. It was this huge line of lights. And the crazy part is there was no sound at all. And as it flew over, all the generators at the hotel turned off. Like there was no noise. It was almost like it turned all the electricity, everything off. It flew over. And as it flew over, boop, 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 all the lights completely went out and it disappeared. And I was like,
Wow.
and then all of a sudden all the generators went on. And my partner and I were like looking on the balconies and we're like, did anyone else see that? No one saw it. Like no one. And there wasn't a lot of people at the hotel, but you'd think like someone would have seen something out the window.
No one saw that,
No one saw it. No one
but
saw it
they
at
were
all.
out on their balconies.
Yeah, I know. I was like, come on, we need someone to talk to about this.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was insane. And after my partner went asleep, I just closed my eyes and I brought that blue energy back in and I started channeling it. And I just started asking them questions. And they were like, yeah, you can't see us. You can't see us unless you're in a certain frequency. Like some of your technology can't always pick up depending on like what frequency we are, the ships or the dimensional frequency. So it opened me up to like, wow, there is so much flying through our skies. Number one, that we can't even see, but it's the technology that we have and what they have. I was like, man, either the government is hiding really awesome technology from us, who knows?
I don't
Or
think.
aliens have really high technology. Could be either, could be both, who knows, right? But like I was like, it's such a bummer. My like our phones couldn't capture it. And I have like an iPhone 10. You'd think it would be not so bad. So,
Wow. That is an awesome story. I have I haven't had too many people on my show that has had experiences like that. And it's so
mm,
cool, I just the one that I had when I was younger, that was just
mm,
amazing. It feels like a dream, but yeah, I know that happened.
mm-hmm,
It's crazy
mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's brilliant. So I don't know if, and
Mhm.
I've seen it in the mountains too. We saw the same line actually in the mountains as well. So, and because you've got mediumship stuff and you're like opening more and more to that realm, you have to let me know if you see something come through and you close your eyes and you're like, okay, well, how do I feel? What frequency? Is there an emotion? Is there a color? Like, what am I tuning into? Because there might be there might be certain beings at certain frequencies that you can tune into and see that maybe other people can't see as well, depending on the frequency you're running. So I'd be curious to see what you notice or what you tap into the next time it happens.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see what my husband comes up with because he's still kind
Yeah.
of on the fence.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He's leaning.
Da, da, da,
He's
da.
getting there. But he's seen enough. I think he's starting to go like something's up with this,
Yeah.
because he's seeing these stars that are twinkling and then fading out and coming back, fading
Mhm.
out, coming back, and then with the little twinklies around that main star. I mean, something's going.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. We're gonna
Mm.
have to get together again. This is so much. But we're running
Mhm.
low on time. But
Mm.
thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
And if anybody else out there has any stories that you want to share, email me. It's going to be so much fun. Just email me, lighttalk423@gmail.com. And while you're at it, click on the like, share, and subscribe buttons down below. And let's get this energy out there. Let's raise it. So, meanwhile, we will talk with you next time. Bye, everyone.